Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back. My name is notiansans. This, of course, is Learn How to Edit Stuff, and this video, the one you're watching right now, is probably one of the most exciting tutorials I've ever done on this channel. Now, why is that? Well, for starters, After Effects, Adobe After Effects called me, and they were like, hey, in a month or two, we're gonna be releasing a new secret tool in After Effects beta. We want you to use it and have it and play around with it before anybody else does, and then make a tutorial on it for when we release it to the world. And I was like, well, I don't know, I'm kind of busy. The quarantine's got, no, of course I said yes. That's what this video is. You probably already saw it in the video title, Rotobrush 2. And it's very exciting news. And I already know what you're thinking, Rotobrush 1 users. You're like, Rotobrush 2, the original wasn't so great. There's never been a sequel that's better than the original. Well, we're gonna try to change your mind today. If you haven't downloaded the beta release of After Effects from the Creative Cloud app, go ahead and do that now. Otherwise, just sit back, relax, and let's check out Rotobrush 2. All right, After Effects beta is open, and down here on my timeline, I have a video clip of a guy walking on a treadmill while texting. The goal I'm trying to achieve is putting a text message bubble in the background of this video behind my subject, but unfortunately, we didn't shoot this on a green screen, so we'll have to resort to rotoscoping. For those of you that are unfamiliar with rotoscoping, it is basically the process of extracting someone or something from a piece of video that was never really meant to be extracted in the first place. You can rotoscope someone into a scene, out of a scene, use it to create layer separation, color VFX. There are a lot of uses for it, almost all of which usually take a tremendous amount of time, a tremendous amount of patience, and involve painstaking frame-by-frame masking, a lot of clicking, your finger starts cramping, and you're wondering why you ever took this job in the first place. But now we've got Rotobrush 2. Rotobrush 2 can be found in the same place as its predecessor, right up here at the top under Window. And if we hover our mouse over the icon, it says drag over foreground, alt drag over background. So that's exactly what we're gonna do. But first we need to double click on our video layer in the timeline, then click on Rotobrush, and now we can start painting in our foreground or what we want to mask in our scene. So basically, you're gonna wanna paint in your subject with individual strokes, making sure not to select the background as your foreground. If you start grabbing bits of the background like this, don't worry, just hold down Alt or Option and paint that part out. Green plus is foreground, red minus is background. Also, if you hold down Control and click and drag up and down, you can change the size of your brush for really getting into some of those tight corners. Now here's a pro tip. You're absolutely going to want to spend as much time as possible on your base frame because Rotobrush 2 bases everything after this on the frame previous to it. So if you start really strong and detailed, chances are you will have a much smoother and better roto at the end. Lots of detail and time spent early on because you're going to want to avoid making a lot of correction strokes down the line as it will create some chatter in your roto that you definitely don't want. Cool, this base frame is looking pretty good to me so far, but before we go on, let's quickly look at what options we have in our effect controls. Under quality, we have best and standard, and I'm obviously going to use best because it's the best, but the difference between best and standard is the amount of pixels being fed into the machine learning model. Best is being fed more pixels than standard, but my computer's pretty good, so I'm gonna keep it on best. Under propagation, you can set and view the search radius or enable classic controls, but honestly, I'm just gonna leave this at default. You can fine-tune your Rotobrush mat, but I highly recommend using these controls after you've completed the roto because it's much easier to manage. Same with motion blur and edge colors, which we'll come back to later. And that's it, pretty simple. So now I think it's time to roto. So I'm gonna click into my timeline at frame 1, then hold down Control and hit the right arrow key to move frame by frame, and Rotobrush will start propagating each frame as I continue through the shot. And guys, we're doing this in real time. There's no movie magic. You can see how well this thing is actually working. So as I'm moving along, I'm just gonna be looking out for any weird imperfections that may happen. And if I see one, just like this, I'll zoom in, paint out the mistake, then continue on my way. Honestly, this is looking insanely good so far. I've barely had to touch anything or correct any mistakes. And now I'm done. Insane, that took like no time at all. While you're working on your roto, you have some interesting view controls right here underneath the frame. You have toggle alpha, alpha boundary, or alpha overlay where you can select the background color as well. All right, I'm really happy with this. So now it's time to freeze our roto, which is basically going to tell After Effects to save and protect your rotoscope. And just like that, if we click back into our composition, we have extracted our guy from our scene with elegance and grace. Now we have the opportunity to fine-tune our Rotobrush mat. Feather will obviously feather and soften the edges. Contrast will determine how hard or soft the edge actually is. Shift edge will give you some positive or negative bleed on your subject. And reduce chatter will smooth out any random small imperfections in your roto. Since my subject is moving, I will turn on motion blur, and if you want, you can turn on decontaminate edge colors, which looks interesting, but for this scene probably isn't necessary. I think this is only useful if you have edge color background bleed, which we don't have, so I'm not going to use it. And now I'm going to duplicate my layer, delete Rotobrush off the bottom layer, and now we have layer separation for us to put our text message bubble behind. I'm going to quickly whip up a graphic, animate it a little bit, and now we have successfully inserted this graphic into our video, and it took literally no time at all. Honestly, if I had to frame by frame mask this scene to do what we just did, I'd quit, for sure, I'm out. If you need to make any changes to your roto for any reason, you can double click back into your layer, unfreeze it, make the necessary changes, then freeze it again. For those of you working with subjects with frizzy hair or super fine details, you can long click and hold on the Rotobrush icon to bring up the Refine Edge brush and paint over your fine edge, making sure to keep the brush straddling your line. In your view mode, make sure X-ray is selected so you can really see the finite detail that you're grabbing. Now, same process, go frame by frame, remove any mistakes by holding down Alt or Option, let it propagate, freeze the roto, then fine-tune the Refine Edge brush just like your roto mat, but with separate controls. Not everyone will need to or want to use the Refine Edge brush, but it tends to get overlooked, and honestly, that's pretty sad because it's pretty awesome. Okay, let me guess, you're probably wanting a comparison of the same piece of video using Rotobrush 1 instead of Rotobrush 2. Am I in the right ballpark? Here I'm using Rotobrush V1 and I was following the same rules. Individual strokes, being careful not to select the background as my foreground and vice versa. And once I got to a decent base frame I was happy with, I toggled over one frame and it instantly started losing detail in multiple parts of my frame. So I did a lot of correction strokes, and after I corrected all of it on frame 3, same thing. I was spending so much time making corrections that I eventually just gave up and tried to chunk through the roto, and even with the fine tuning, this is the result it came back with. It's disgusting, and I spent twice as long on this and gave up halfway through. Let me guess, that's probably not enough for you. You're also wanting to see Rotobrush 1 and Rotobrush 2 side by side on the same screen. Okay, roll it. Okay, without question, Rotobrush 2 is clearly superior. The sequel is better than the original. So technically, the biggest difference between Rotobrush 1 and Rotobrush 2 is the algorithm that is being used in After Effects. Version 1 is a non-machine learning algorithm, where version 2 is, you guessed it, machine learning. Adobe Sensei machine learning to be exact, which helps generate more accurate mattes when separating foreground and background elements in video sequences. Rotobrush 2 is also better at adapting to changes without the need for intervention, better at capturing edges, and utilizes GPU instead of CPU, so if you've got a decent graphics card, you'll 100% notice the difference. Now with all the free time you're gonna have after using Rotobrush 2, you can do some selective color adjustments, replicates, comp them into another scene completely, hell, roto a completely different scene since you have that much free time on your hands. Maybe now is the time you can finally realize your lifelong dream of making Snoop Dogg memes. People will be so impressed by you thinking you're working so hard and so long doing all this stuff, but really, you're just painting, having a good time, and letting After Effects machine learning algorithms do their thing. Give yourselves a round of applause, you deserve it. And that's it guys, I don't know what else to say. Rotobrush 2, the sequel, better than the original, saves a lot of time, really fun and fast to use. Sign me up. Well, I've been signed up for a little bit, but you can sign up by downloading the beta release of After Effects from the Creative Cloud app right now. All right, get out of here, go play with Rotobrush 2. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, definitely give it a thumbs up. And also thank you Adobe After Effects for hitting me up and giving me the opportunity to make this video. It's been an honor. I love you guys. I love you guys too. If you haven't already, please make sure you subscribe to the channel and also check out the last video that you missed. I don't know what the cadence is anymore. Quarantine's really starting to, to set in a little bit. I do them whenever I want. I've been working on a lot of stuff with Adobe. But anyway, subscribe, check out the last video, and I will see you next time.